morning, Celebration Spiritual Center. Good morning. Let us stand as we prepare to open our service with prayer. And this morning, our prayer champion, Reverend Q, will lead us in prayer.
Good morning, Celebration. Good morning. So glad to be here. And let's together unify with breath. Take a moment and close your eyes. Center within. Take a big breath in and breathe it out. Breathing in here and breathing out now. Breathing in peace and breathing out calm. I ease into this moment knowing that there is one breath, one God, and one divinity guiding us all to be here at this very moment. I am so grateful to recognize this source as Mother, Father, God, all-encompassing spirit, omnipotence, omniscience, and omnipresence. I know that I have been brought here to this moment to be a healing agent for God, serving up the truth that is well established in this place. I am so thankful to recognize God as the all in all, knowing that God provides all, prepared us for this very moment. I am so thankful for the wisdom that is flowing in my consciousness. I am so thankful for the wisdom that is healing my body right here and right now. And I know that what is true for me is true for you. For God is constant, relating to us in every way. Knowing that this circumstance and this situation has God written all over it. And I'm so thankful to let go of any thoughts that interfere with this truth. I'm so thankful to know the worthiness of God in me as you. I am so thankful to know that we are what God created us to be, and that right here, right now, there's something to be thankful for. I'm thankful to stand here. I'm thankful to breathe the air. I'm thankful to witness you. I'm thankful to hear the sounds from the band. I'm so thankful to know what's coming next. A healing is happening right here, right now. I'm so thankful to know that the increase is happening in our finances right now. I'm so thankful that we are open and welcome to this very moment. I'm so thankful that the law of love is at work as our lives. And it's with this that the law of correspondence as work. As above, so shall it be below. As below, so shall it be above. Thy will be done. Right here in the now, let us rejoice in advance for all the ways that life shows up better than we expected. That it shows up with the abundance of opportunities in this situation. Right here, let us rejoice and lift our voice saying, Amen, Amen. Ashe, and so it is.
Celebrate being here in the present moment. The past is gone, the future is yet to come, and we are here now. Yes, yes? I can feel my feet on the ground. I am in the present moment now. What a joyful place I found. Here in the present moment now. Oh, I am here now. Leaving my worries at the door, opening to more love and joy. Celebrate with me now. We're in the present moment now. Yeah, we are. We take a breath, we say, I breathe in, I breathe out. I'm in the present moment now. This is the easiest way to return to the present, by putting your focus and attention on your breath. And then you can affirm these words. Here in the present, problems seem so small. Here in the present, all my giants fall. Here in the present, problems seem so small. Whoa. Here in the present, all my giants fall. Oh, we are living the power of
Welcome to Celebration Spiritual Center, where we celebrate the magnificence of God, whatever you call God, in, through, and as you. All around you, there is nothing but God, and it is good. That means that right where you sit, that vibration, that heartbeat, that breath moving, that is God, and it is good. That means that God created you. It didn't change its mind about you. It's not Santa. It's not keeping a list of your mistakes. It's not doing any of those things. It's unconditional love. Unconditional love that sees you how it created you. And if you are holding on to something that you think that would keep you from this loving presence, you can let it go now. You can let it go right now. Or even right now. Let it go and allow this love to fill you the way it really always does. Knowing that we are connected to Source, that means that everything is spiritual. That includes your cell phones. So what I want you to do is spiritualize your cell phone. You might say, well, Pastor Yolanda, what does that mean? That means put your cell phone on vibrate. But if something moves you or touches you, put it out there on Facebook and Twitter. Let people know where you are. Not just where you sit, but where you are in consciousness. You are connected to every other being on the planet. I don't know if you knew that. And where one mind is joined, it joins with another mind. So you never know how you're going to impact another life. So put it out there on Facebook and Twitter. And if you receive one of these blue connection cards, fill it out, drop it in with your offering, and we'll put you on our mailing list. We are in year 6 at CSC.
All right.
Going into year 7. And every year I am more amazed at how things just unfold beautifully here at CSC. We keep growing, and we want you to grow with us. So make sure we have your information. And when we created CSC, we said yes to a vision. A vision that said, when you came to this place, you were never a visitor. The first time you come, you're a guest. When you come back, you're family. First time you come to CSC, you are a guest. But when you come back, just settle in like family. So, if we have any first-time guests, please stand briefly. First-time guests. One, Right, let's stand and greet each other like that.
Stay in that vibration of celebrating who and whose we are. So often when we come to spiritual communities, the focus and the attention is on some being, something outside of us, which is not who and what God is, right? God lives, moves, and has it being within us. God is within you. And if that is true, then that means that all of the qualities and attributes that others may be praising or affirming about God must be true about you. If God is holy, you are holy. If God is powerful, you are powerful. If God is love, you are love. If God is compassionate and kind, so you are compassionate and kind. If God is beautiful, then so you are beautiful. So let's affirm this together, beautiful people. Beauty in me sees the beauty in you. And so we want to celebrate that about you and remind you, you do not have to wait for someone else to call you beautiful, but you must know it for yourself. And as you know it for yourself and within yourself, you will find that the whole world begins to affirm that truth about you. This is a high self-esteem song. Here we go.
Beautiful people.
Every one of you are
Beautiful people. Beautiful people.
Every one of you are
Beautiful people.
I'm going to stay right there.
Beautiful people.
Hey, every one of you are
Beautiful people. Beautiful people.
Every one of you are
Beautiful people.
And repeat after me. I see you.
I see you.
And you're beautiful.
And you're beautiful.
I see you.
I see you.
And you're beautiful.
And you're beautiful.
I'm looking at you.
I'm looking at you.
And you're beautiful.
And you're beautiful.
I'm looking at you.
I'm looking at you.
And you're beautiful. Everybody sing, oh.
Beautiful people.
You were made in God's image. You are.
Beautiful people.
Hey, oh.
Beautiful people.
Every one of you are beautiful.
morning. My name is Gabby, and I am so happy to be here today. One thing that you will learn about CSC is that our mission, our vision, and our purpose guide everything that we do. The vision. Celebration Spiritual Center is a God experience that turns on the heart, mind, and soul of the world. A God experience is the realization of oneness that transcends material sense. Our mission and purpose is to awaken the world to the presence of God within and all around us. Celebrate this truth as one family, embody unconditional love, equip humanity to live our greatest lives, and serve all creation. The centering thought for this month's meditation is, I will be still an instant and go home. And the song for the month is, Return Again. We continue the September message series, Reimagine the Bible, Reclaiming Our Power. Yeah. Pastor Greg's topic today is, Going Up Yonder. Yeah. And now it's time for your CSC news and updates. We're back to regular hours, so that means doors open at 10:30 a.m. and service starts promptly at 11 a.m. Come get clarity about what's going on in your life. Pastor Greg and Pastor Yolanda are here to support you in applying what you learn at CSC to your daily life experiences. Join us today at 1 p.m. for the God Talk. No question is off limits. Do you have a prosperous mindset? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. A prosperous mindset will open doors for you, bring ease and flow to all your activities, heal your relationships, and bring freedom and joy. You can have all of these things and more in 12 weeks or less. Go to celbrationsc.org/register and learn more about the 4T Prosperity Program and how you can study the principles of prosperity with Pastor Greg and Pastor Yolanda. Class begins on Thursday, September 26th from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. This is the final 4T class of 2019, so sign up today. Fill up your morning cup. PGPY and the Prayer Champions pray with us and for us every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. Start your day by knowing the truth of who and whose you are. Call details can be found at the host table on our website and social media. Connect with us this Wednesday and fill up your cup. Text to give. It's fast, it's easy, and it's secure. Text your dollar amount to 347-744-9500 and then follow the prompts. Minimum donation is $10. Again, the number is 347-744-9500. Try it out today. Now, just a few short housekeeping reminders. Food and drink is not allowed in the sanctuary except for water. However, we do ask that you keep your beverage covered. Also, no audio or video recording is permitted during service. And now we just have a few short announcements from Pastor Greg and Pastor Yolanda. But before that, thank you for celebrating with us. See you next week.
Thank you, Gabby. How many people were here last weekend for Endless Summer? Woo! It was amazing. And I just wanted to take one last opportunity to thank some very important people. James, will you stand? Nancy, will you stand? Couldn't have made it happen. Never would have made it. Thank you so much to both of you. Any other volunteers that were here last week to help with set up or break down? Just stand for a second if you're here. Just stand up. We believe and acknowledge people that help make our vision happen. Thank you all so much, and we look forward. I love visioning, and I love planning, and I love execution, and everyone that volunteered made it happen. So thank you all, and everyone that came and had an amazing time. Thank you for just being in the joy of it all. Thank you all.
Good morning again. I will do my best to make this as brief as possible, but I would like to let you all know that we will be beginning Prayer Champion training in October, in the first week of October. There are a number of requirements in order to take the training and potentially become a prayer champion here at CSC. The first thing is that you have to be a member. You have to be a member in good standing. Second, you have to have successfully completed the 4T Prosperity Program. Third, you have to have attended our free affirmative intro to affirmative prayer class. That's preferred, and so we're willing to, if you haven't taken that class, we're willing to discuss that. And finally, you must be ready, willing, and able to enter into this new phase and step in ministry, because becoming a CSC prayer champion is really the first step in becoming a minister at CSC. So if you are interested in taking this training and being a part of this, we have a form, an intake form that's actually on our website. You'll scroll down to the classes and events section. You'll see that there. We ask a number of questions. We want to get some information about you, and PY and I will reach out to you so that we can discuss your form and move forward from there. Again, it starts in the first week of October. It's a 12-week training. Sort of the first part of the training, I should say. It's 12 weeks, and then we move forward from there. If you have any questions, please come see myself, come see Pastor Yonder. You can also talk to the prayer champions who can tell you a little bit about their experience. And we look forward to training and inviting more prayer champions into the fold. It's a very, very, very exciting thing for myself and for Pastor Yolanda, because we love this part of ministry, and we love the impact that our prayer champions have as they literally pray for all of us week in and week out.
Well, we have come to the time in our service that we dedicate to ourselves, to reconnecting to self, to reconnecting, thank you, to reconnecting to the God within us, to allowing the truth of our being to just permeate every cell. We call it the meditation experience, and experience is the optimal word here. Because you can read all that you want. You can read every book, you can study every sacred text, you can memorize them all. But if you've never felt God alive within you, what you've done is just collect a whole lot of information. And what we want you to do is to feel God alive in every breath that you take, to feel God, because that's the only way you're going to know God. You can't know God for me, and I can't know God for you. You have to feel it within you and allow that knowingness to be carried into every situation. And so we meditate, we reconnect, we have this internal feeling and awareness of God's presence alive within us. So, let's prepare ourselves for our internal time, for our connected time. Let's bring our feet to the floor. And if you're holding anything in your lap that would prevent you or that would block this channel from receiving, go ahead and lay it aside now. And we begin when we close our eyes by allowing the relaxation of just the eyelids closing to signal the body that the rest of the body too can relax. Bringing your focus to the feet internally, imagine the feet on the floor. Imagine each toe extending, spreading, creating a base. Allow the heels to relax. And this slight signal, imagine in your mind energy beginning to collect and travel up the shins and the calves. Relax the shins, relax the calves. Energy travels now across the knees, across the thighs, and settles in the seat in the hips, and they relax. Now imagine the joy of relaxation traveling up the spine, each vertebra, and more importantly, each chakra opening and relaxing and balancing. Energy travels up, 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 and out the crown of the head. And that energy collects above you, meeting the energy of your neighbor, and filling the room with the vibration of love. And from this open portal in the crown, allow it to flow back down through the body. As it flows down, it relaxes the shoulders, travels down the arms, and relaxes the hands, the palms, and the fingers. Now bring your focus to the right palm. Imagine that the gentle breeze that crosses the palm now begins to travel up the arm. And as we breathe together, let's notice this vibration. Inhaling up the right side of the body. Now exhale down the left side. Inhale up the left side. Exhale down the right. Inhale up the right side. And exhale down the left. Inhale up the left side. Exhale down the right. A few more rounds of this breathing up and down on your own. And in your mind, see yourself being held and rocked gently. Rocked gently by the source of love, comforting you, holding you, and reminding you that connection is just a breath away. Now, together inhale through the low belly, hold it there, open the mouth and release. Now, inhale all the way up through the rib cage. Hold it there. Open the mouth and let go of whatever you're holding. And this time, the full breath. Inhale through the low belly, all the way up through the heart, expanding across the chest, front and back and sides of the body. And let go of the breath. Let go of the problems and the worry. Again, breathing in and all the way up. Hold it there. New set point. From this point forward, let go of whatever you were holding. Exhale. One more time. Inhale. Hold it there. And release. Inhale all the way up this time. Close the lips and slowly exhale through the nose. Slower, relaxing, more and more. Each breath in and out through the nose for the remainder of our meditation. Each breath releasing more, relaxing the muscles more, letting go more. And each breath you hear the subtle as we sing these words, you just imagine what home feels like. Where you're unconditionally loved and held and known. And as we sing, you just imagine and take that inward journey. Return again. Return again. Return to the land of your soul. Return again. Return again. Return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are. Born and reborn again. Return to what you are. Return to who you are. Return to where you are. Born and reborn again. Breathing in and out, nice and easy. We're creating a musical container to hold you safe and secure. So as the breath flows and the music flows, go deeper into self.
Return to the land of your soul.
Return again. Each breath takes you there.
Return again. Return to the land of your soul.
You know the way.
Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are. Born and reborn again. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are. Born and reborn again.
Nothing to fear here. Go home where you were born. Born in the mind of God and the mind of consciousness, where you remain. And as the music begins to slow and we go into our silent time, you let every voice but the voice that tells you you're perfect, whole, and complete, tells you to come home. Let every voice but this voice be still. Now. ourselves from the inside. And though we hear the external sounds of the world, we can always find this quiet place within us, where love says you're worthy, where truth says you've made no mistakes. God and Source and love waits for you. Where the answers are.
Return to the land of your soul.
The song has never been changed.
Return again. Return again. Return to the land of your soul.
Something's drawn you to the truth.
Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are born and reborn again. Return to who you are. Return to what you are. Return to where you are born and reborn again.
Start to bring yourself back now. Maybe notice a subtle sensation in the fingers. Maybe wiggle the fingers and the toes to signal yourself, the body, that it is time to come back. But you don't come back unchanged. You come back connected. You come back remembering. So go ahead and bring the palms together at heart center. And bow the chin to the fingertips, and gently, when you're ready, open the eyes and find a focal point in front of you on the floor. And with a breath, inhale, raise the chin, raise the gaze. Namaste.
As we were being, as we were being led through the meditation, I allowed my mind to travel back a bit, thinking about when I wrote this song that we're going to sing. And what I remember is sort of where I was in my life. And I think it's important to share a little bit about this, because sometimes you all see pastors, you see myself, you see Pastor Yonder, and you might think that, we have it all together, or we've never had any problems or any issues. And I remember being in a place of experiencing the trifecta. I had financial problems, I had relationship problems, and I had problems at work. Can anybody relate? Anybody ever been in just 3 or more things at the same time, right? And I remember walking through my days and walking through life at that moment, just feeling very heavy, feeling like the weight of the world was on me. And, when we're in that moment, when we've studied and we have tools, sometimes you pull out the worksheets or the books, and it's like, that mess ain't saying nothing. Yes, yes. And there wasn't much that I could really do, but I sat at the piano and began to play. And as I began to play, I just began to sing, I give this to you. I give this to you. You know the answer. You know what to do. I did not have the answers. I did not know how I was going to get out of this situation. I didn't know how things were going to change, and things were looking very bleak. But the only thing that I could anchor myself on was that there was a wisdom, there was a truth, there was a reality that lives, moves, and has its being in me that I choose to call Mother, Father, God in this moment. I know that it has the answers. And I know something about life, that if there's a question, there must be an answer. I know something about life, that I'm not alone. I know something about life that I've been supported in the past. I know something about life that I felt like my back was against the wall, but I'm out here living and free today. So while I don't understand it all and I can't articulate it all right here and right now, I simply give this to the God in me. I cast the burden on the mind of God and I go free. And so wherever you may be in your life, I ask you to anchor yourself into the message of this song, because it comes from a lived place. It's not just something that sounded good to write about or sing about, but it came out of my own place of despair, and I'm on the other side of it now. When my way seems dark,
My way seems dark,
and I cannot see,
and I cannot see.
I remember that you
Remember that you
are guiding me.
are guiding me.
When I want to fear,
And I want to fear,
to run and hide,
to run and hide.
I just look to the source of all life.
The source of all life.
I give this to you.
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 You know the answers.
You know the answer.
You know what to do.
You know what to do.
I give this to you. I give this to you.
I give this to you.
God, you know the answers.
You know the answer.
You know what to do.
You know what to do.
When I get upset,
I get upset
when I'm feeling small,
when I'm feeling small.
when I forget
When I forget
that I'm safe and
that
strong,
I'm safe and strong.
God lovingly,
Lovingly,
you always remind me
you remind me
that I don't have to hold this anymore.
I don't have to hold this anymore.
So what am I choosing to do right now?
I give this to you.
I give this to you.
I give this to you.
Because you know the answers.
You know the answer.
You know what to do.
You know what to do.
I give this to you.
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 You know the answers.
You know the answer.
You know what to do.
You know what to do.
Now what are we giving up? It's important to realize, what are we giving up? Worry, doubt, and fear?
Worry, doubt, and fear.
I give it up. Yeah. Why? Because it was never mine. It doesn't belong to me.
It was never
on the mind of God, and I let it do its work elegantly, perfectly, easily, and effortlessly. I remind myself that I'm supported. I remind myself that I'm never alone. There is a great wisdom, the whole wisdom of the universe that holds the planets in place is right here, right now within me. I turn to that wisdom right here and right now. The wisdom of God that keeps the stars in the sky. sustains all life, this intelligence that created all life and sustains all life, I can rely on it. I can turn to it for answers. I can turn to it for a breakthrough. I can turn through it to change and transform and transmute the situation. I can turn to it and know that nothing but good can come from this. I stand in that knowing right here and right now. I stand in that knowing right here and right now. I stand in that knowing right here and right now. As we choose to give it to you. As we choose to let go of the worry, the doubt, and the fear. Soul 21, can we sing? Oh,
Worry down and fear.
I give it up, yeah.
I give it up.
Worry down and fear.
I give it up.
Yes, right here, right now.
I give it
One more time. Worry down and fear. Don't hold on to this thing. Leave it right now. Drop it right now. Drop it right now. Oh, worry down and fear. Worry down.
worry down and fear. I give it up.
I give it up. Why? Because it was never mine in the first place.
It was never mine.
I surrender all. You know the end. You know what to do. I will trust you. I will trust you. I give it all to you. You know the answers. The answers. And so now I choose to trust in that intelligence. I choose to trust in that knowing. Now I choose to walk in this life as though I have support. I choose to walk in this life knowing that I don't have to have it all figured out. But God has it figured out. You know what to do. Glad you know just what to do. So glad you know just what to do. I cast this burden on the mind of God. I cast this burden on the mind of God. I give it all to you. Set yourself free right here and right now. There's something that you need to give up. Give it up right now. Do not go home with that burden. Do not go home with that problem. This is your opportunity right now, right now, right now, right now, right now. Your name is not worry. Your name is not fear. Your name is not worry. Your name is not fear. But you have all the support you could ever need. Oh, yeah. You know what to do. You know what to do. And so it is. Thank you, Soul 21. Thank you, Celebration Band. That's nice. How are we feeling? You feeling good? Awesome, awesome. We have already had an amazing time. We're going to just keep that vibration going. So as you have heard, we're in our series, Reimagine the Bible, Reclaiming Our Power. We started in week 1 by looking at the story of Jezebel with the text or the title, Loving Jezebel, to free ourselves from any of the stereotypes and all of the misinterpretations and the abuse of women that has been perpetuated because of a misunderstanding of the woman Jezebel, Princess, Queen Jezebel. And I invite you to go back to that sermon if you haven't heard it. Last week we looked at the story of the Battle of Jericho, the power of cycles and seasons. And I shared how the story of Jericho is really encoding something about the heavens, encoding something about the stars, the lunar calendar that is so very important to the Jewish people. And we find that it's encoded right there in that story. And so as we liberated ourselves from believing that this is a label to find some deeper truths and then look at the idea that if these cycles and seasons are so important to the ancient writers, to the extent that they codified it into this story, what do cycles and seasons say and have to do with our lives? And so again, I encourage you to go back to that if you haven't heard it. But we move on. And I love the Reimagine the Bible series. We've been doing this since we started 6 years ago. And I think it's important. One of the things that I've come to understand is that as we begin to see the Bible differently, as we're looking at the First Testament mostly this time, or the Second Testament, or the Book of Psalms, or we've talked about the Gnostic scriptures, we, of course, gain deeper knowledge and we gain a new perspective as we're looking at these texts. But I realize that there's something else that happens, if it hasn't already happened to you, not even as a result of this series, but particularly just being a part of the New Thought movement and starting to shift and change your belief system and expectations. Many of our beloved gospel songs start to lose their power. Right? You know, I'm obviously a gospel music lover and scholar, and it's always been very important to me to really talk about and teach the history of gospel music, as I think it's so important as a genre of American music. But again, things start to shift and change. Songs that you used to love, songs that you used to clap to, you can't clap to them anymore. They still feel good, they still sound good, right? But you don't agree with the underlying theology anymore, and it becomes very difficult. And of course, so we give ourselves the feel and the sound, but it's also affirmative. I was reminded there's a song, a gospel song from the 70s, Give Me a Clean Heart. And these lyrics are so problematic, right? It's based on the psalm that's attributed to David, creating me a clean heart, oh God, and this was a prayer that he was writing, a prayer of repentance after he was involved in a whole lot of stuff. And but this lyric, give me a clean heart so I may serve thee. Lord, fix my heart so that I may be used by thee. Here's the thing, for I'm not worthy of all those blessings or these blessings. Give me a clean heart and I'll follow thee. Now, we've been spending time affirming our worthiness and understanding our worthiness. We've been realizing we've been out here living life like we were unworthy, accepting situations like we were unworthy, dating folk like we were unworthy, saying yes to jobs like we were unworthy, walking around the street like we unworthy. And we come to an awareness, thank God, through these teachings that we indeed are worthy. That the power of God lives, moves, and breathes within us. And so if we're going to praise God, we have to be praising ourselves and celebrating this truth, this beauty, this power that lives within us. You are worthy. Yes, yes, you are worthy. We can't affirm for I'm unworthy of all these blessings. No longer can we affirm that. And so then that song, we just got to put that on the shelf. We can't do that with that song. And so there's so many songs like that. But I'm hoping today that we can take a beloved gospel song and reimagine it in the same way that we're reimagining the text. And so the song came to mind today, or for this message, that was recorded by Walter Hawkins and the Love Center Choir back in '75. It was released in '75 from the Love Alive album, the classic album, a classic song, Going Up Yonder. If you don't know the lyrics, if you want to know where I'm going soon. If anybody asks you where I'm going soon. Where are you going? I'm going up yonder. Where am I going? I'm going up yonder. Again, I'm going up yonder to be with my Lord, right? She goes in the subsequent verses, I can take the pain, the heartaches they bring, the comfort in knowing I'll soon be gone. As God gives me grace, I'll run this race until I see my Savior face to face. I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder. Right? And this is a beloved song, as I can already see. Now, taking it at face value and taking it from its original intent and meaning, this would be another song we got to put on the shelf, right? Because heaven is not a real place, and neither is hell. They are extensions of our minds, extensions of our thoughts. So hell can only exist in our minds. It can only exist. Heaven can only exist in our minds. Now, they are real experiences. That's what I say. Hell is not a real place, but it's a real experience. Because we create hellish experiences based on how we believe. We create heavenly experiences based on how we believe. So understanding that we're not talking about literal places, again, we would have to just put this to the side because they're singing about going to heaven. They're singing about the sweet by and by. They're singing about, Jesus is going to come down and trumpets are going to blow and right? But I'm hoping that we can hear this song a little differently. Not that this was the intent of the writer. I want to hear that. This was not the intent of the writer. But I'm hoping that we can hear it differently. And so this takes me to Genesis. Genesis, we're going to start in Genesis 13, but we're going to take a little saga. We'll go from like 13 to about 21 through the expanse of the story. And we're going to talk about Abram and Lot. And when we get to chapter 13, it tells us something. There's so many clues here, but the first thing we read is about Abram and Lot, and they separate. This is 13 verses 14 through 13. The Lord said to Abram, after Lot had separated from him, raise your eyes now and look from the place where you are, northward and southward, eastward and westward. For all the land that you see, I will give you and to your offspring forever. Now, just that verse alone is a huge clue. Because what we must understand, and we find this, as I've said in previous weeks, we find this thing repeated over and over in the Bible, that Abram represents the zodiac, right? And so the offspring of Abram is actually the 12 houses of the zodiac. And so this is why when we read northward, southward, eastward, and westward, right? That's the big clue right there. And Abram means exalted father. And the other gentleman who we read about, Lot, the correct pronunciation is Lot, but Lot is what we know, means covering. And so we find that the exalted father and the covering separate, right? And that's kind of the first part we read in the story. Now we read some things about Abram and things he's doing. And later in the text, we hear that Abram's nephew, Lot, was captured in Sodom, and Abram goes down to free him. Now, what's interesting about this is it's unclear what their relationship is. It's believed, and as it's introduced in the beginning of the story, that they're brothers, and that's how the story is told many times. But then we go further into the text and we hear about his nephew Lot, and so we don't know if we're talking about the same person. Now, why that's confusing is something that I've shared before, is that there were 4 different schools of writers that wrote what we know as the Old Testament. And the kingdoms separated, and then they came back together. And so what happened is portions of the stories as told from the different schools were put together. Technically, it doesn't matter if Lot was his nephew or his brother. What's most important is to understand that they were family, right? That's actually what's most important. But again, as stories are told, because it's an oral tradition, somebody told the story that said that Lot was Abram's nephew. Somebody told the story that said that Lot was Abram's brother. Again, what's most important for us to understand is that they were related. Now, we move forward into chapter 17, and we read that Abram has now become Abraham. And we read in the text, verse 5, "No longer shall your name be Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, for I have made you the ancestor of a multitude of nations." And so, then Abraham means the exalted father of the multitude. And one of the things that's interesting, we go further, and we read down to verse 15, Sarai becomes Sarah, or Sarah. God said to Abraham, "As for Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her Sarai, but Sarah shall be her name. I will bless her, and moreover, I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she shall give rise to nations. Kings of peoples shall come from her." It's important to note that at this point, Abraham and Sarah were really old. Okay? And so by the prevailing wisdom of that time, this thing about Sarah having a son sounded crazy and impossible. Okay? The other thing that's interesting here on an esoteric level is to understand that one of the things that's happening here, when Abram becomes Abraham and Sarai becomes Sarah or Sarah, this is an indication of them achieving a level of enlightenment, right? That actually, and this really comes from understanding the Hebrew, but when you add that A to the Ham or Sarah, spirit is the breath. And so it's adding that indicator to their names, right? Which tells us something about them. So we have now Abraham is not just the exalted father, he was already exalted, but now he's the exalted father of multitudes. And we now have Sarai has become Sarah, and she's going to become the mother of nations. Kings of peoples shall come from her. And so then we turn the page to chapter 18, and we hear about this place for the second time, but now we get some details about a place called Sodom and Gomorrah. And there's something interesting about this verse, and I want you to hear it, and then I'll point out. It's so funny to me, but I'll point it out. So, Genesis 18, 20 through 21. "Then the Lord said, how great is the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah, and how very grave their sin. I must go down and see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry that has come to me, and if not, I will know." Did you hear what the Lord said? Now, based on the prevailing wisdom, if God is God, why would God need to go down and see what's going on in the place that it could? It's a story, y'all. It's a story, right? And that's okay. But it's so important for us that I highlight this and just because it's right here in plain sight. No longer can we see these stories in the way that we may have been taught to see them before. This God in the story is a personification of human beings' ideas about themselves. And so again, if God truly is God as we understand, all-knowing, all-seeing, all-power, etc., God would not have to go down to earth to see what's going on in little old Sodom and Gomorrah, right? And so as we read that, and again, this is introducing that there's something going on, there's something wrong here. And Abraham has this conversation with God because God is like, this place is sinful and terrible, and so I'm going to destroy it. So Abraham has the conversation. He said, okay, God, well, I know you're God, but I'm wondering if you find 50 people that are righteous, will you save the city? And God's like, yeah. He's like, okay, let me ask you again. Well, I don't want to burden you, but what about if you find 45 people? God's like, yeah, right? He's like, okay, what about 40? God's like, yeah, what about 30, right? He goes down to 10, and still God is like, if there are 10 righteous people, I will spare And then we turn the page again to chapter 19, and we get to the familiar story of what happened at Sodom. And I'm going to read this, and then we'll break some things down. But before they lay down, the men of the city, I should preface this. So at the beginning of the text, we read, the text says angels. The word really just means messengers. We don't know if they were really angels, but they supposedly were sent there by God. So, God said it was going to go down and see. It didn't go down and see. It sent messengers, okay? And so now the messengers are there at the city of Sodom, and here's the scene. But before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man surrounded the house, and they called to Lot. Because Lot had seen the messengers as they came to the gate, and they were going to go into the town square, and Lot was like, y'all don't really want to do that. And they were insisting, and he said, just, you all can stay at my place. Like, my place is safe, and you'll be fine. You don't want to go out into the square in the Sodom, okay? So they agreed, and so before it was time to go to sleep, right, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both young and old, all the people to the last man surrounded the house, and they called to Lot. Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we may know them. Lot went out of the door to the men and shut the door after him and said, I beg you, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Look, I have 2 daughters who have not known a man. Let me bring them out to you, and do to them as you please. Only do nothing to these men, for they have come under the shelter of my roof. But they replied, stand back. And they said, this fellow came here as an alien, and he would play the judge. Now we will deal with you worse than with them. Now, there's a couple things that's problematic about this, right? Right. In this patriarchal society, women were deemed to be property, to the extent that Lot believed he had the authority to give his daughters to these men to be raped. And when we consider some of the things that take place in life today, when we consider some of the things that take place in our world, they're justified by people never having a conversation and saying, this was wrong. This was wrong. Women are not property. Should never be treated this way. But of course, there's something else that has happened as a result of this story. Because these men said, send out the angels so that we may know them, which is the biblical term for relations. And of course, that's very clear when we hear that Lot is offering his daughters instead, right? And even also that idea they've never been touched by a man, that whole virginity stuff. There's so much there. Lord have mercy. And so it's from this scene that we get the word, the English term that we know as sodomy. But we recognize that nothing about this has anything to do with same-gender love. Nothing. Nothing about that. There's nothing loving about this moment, right? There's no consent in this moment. Even if they had said, okay, we'll take your daughters, there was no consent in that. It would be rape. If he had sent out the messengers, it would have been rape. There's no consent, there's abuse. And so what we must understand, something that took place in this world and at this time, this was a practice that was used to exercise power against those that they deemed to be other or simply powerless. And it's interesting because this is not just relegated to ancient times. I'm reminded of, we look back even in this century to 2003, during the Iraq War, it came out about the torture that occurred at Abu Ghraib at the hands of U.S. military servicemen, that they sodomized, raped, and tortured prisoners of war. But we can go back even further, since we are in New York, 1997, Abner Louima. New York City police officers sodomized, raped, abused, tortured this brother. And so we recognize that this is something that's used. It's a reflection of an abuse of power. And it's so interesting because we don't get a lot of information about Sodom, right? We're told that it was a wicked place, and we get this scene But if you dig into some of the extra biblical texts and some of the rabbinical commentary and some of the midrash that comes from the 4th and 5th century, they tell a story, and it's sort of like legend and folklore, that one of the things that happened is that Lot's daughter was very benevolent, and she would go to the well, and there would be folks who were in need, and she would give them water. And the people of Sodom didn't like that, because the people of Sodom were very greedy. The people of Sodom were, I got mines, you figure out how to get yours. Reminds me of some things going on in this country. And so what it says, according to the story, when we read that part about God saying, I heard the cries of the people, I need to see what's going on in Sodom, what happened is they had finally gotten sick and tired of her giving these people that were in need what they needed. And so there was a crowd that was going to kill her because she was giving to the people. And she cried out to God and said, God, help me, God, save me. That was the cry that God heard. It wasn't a cry about sin or a cry about how terrible the people were, but he understood that there was someone that was acting out of justice. There was someone that was seeking to live out equality, and I must go see about my daughter. That's the legend of the story. And so we recognize, again, what was happening in the city was an incredible abuse of power, the same type of abuse of power that we even see in this country and in this world today. And unfortunately, this word has been misused and misapplied. We've had sodomy laws. Actually, to this day, as of March of this year, there are still sodomy laws on the books in 16 states in the United States. Thankfully, there are some states that have redefined particularly sodomy as what it is: abuse, rape, forced abuse, etc. That's what it is. So if we're going to use the word and we're going to pin it on this story, we got to understand exactly what it is. But there's more going on. And so I think it's important that we first look at, what does Sodom mean? Sodom means burning, and Gomorrah means submersion. And that's going to make more sense and be a little more significant in a minute. But of course, after we read this story, we read that God does indeed destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And we read in the text in chapter 19, then the Lord rained on Sodom and Gomorrah sulfur and fire from the Lord out of the heaven, and he overthrew those cities and all the plains and all the inhabitants of the city and what grew on the ground. But we know that Lot was saved, his wife was able to flee, and his 2 daughters. And we know the story of what happened to Lot's wife, right? They say Lot's wife looked back, and then she turned into a pillar of salt, right? And that's interpreted, a bunch of different ways, right? She looked back, maybe, lovingly on this sinful city that she wanted to really be a part of. And so God was like, no. And right, that's one thing. But I think it's important also to look at the legend and some of the stories that are within the Jewish and rabbinical tradition, because it gives us some opportunities to just see it differently. And you can take whatever story feels good for you, because there's so many. One thing that's just important that I think we should all understand is, according to folklore, her name is Edith. And I want to name her because so many women in the Bible are not named. Right? They're just the Syrophoenician woman or the woman at the well. There's all these women in the Bible, and they were not named. And so it's quite possible that her name was always known, but was excluded as so many other names were excluded, right? It was just so-and-so's wife, as though their legitimacy only existed in relationship to a man. Hello, y'all hear me? Yeah. All right. Now, according to one piece of folklore, which I think is interesting, the area of what is considered where present-day Sodom and Gomorrah would have been is by the Dead Sea. And one of the things we know about the Dead Sea is that there are lots of large salt deposits there. And so this is part of a legend of, and this is why you see these mountains of salt, because way back in the day in ancient times, Lot's wife looked back and turned into salt, right? That's one idea. Another idea is that a piece of the story that we don't get is that Lot's wife, being very hospitable, wanted to prepare a meal for the guests, the 2 messengers that were there, but she didn't have enough salt for the meal. So she goes to her neighbors and says, can I borrow some salt? Because I have these guests. And it's because she went and said, I have guests. That's what tipped off the people that they had guests that then sent the cycle down. And so according to the story, that's why she was turned into a pillar of salt, because it was because of her asking for salt that created the whole thing to begin with. That's one of the other legends of the story, right? Another one, which I love, it's very loving. Although we read that Lot's daughters indeed survived and were saved, it's said that according to the story, as they were fleeing, she looked back to see if her daughters had made it out. Because she knew that her daughters had husbands and they were married, and that was their town. That's where they had built their life. And so a loving mother would look back to make sure that her girls were safe. And because in that moment of looking back, it says that she saw all of the power and might of God, and it was believed at that time that you couldn't look in the face of God or something was going to happen to you. And so that's why she turned into a pillar of salt. It wasn't actually a punishment, but it was out of this great love that she had for her daughters that caused her to look back. It wasn't that she was longing for Sodom and Gomorrah, longing for a sinful life. And so, again, I encourage you, take what feels good to you. In truth, we really don't know why she turned into a pillar of salt, right? And again, this is one of those stories that has been used somehow to make women bad, or there's something wrong with women, right? Not so. Now, as I shared last week, there's this ongoing cycle that happens that we're reading about through these stories. It's purification, death of the old self, and the realization of oneness or enlightenment. And so when we read this story of Abram and Lot, Abram becoming Abraham and Sarai becoming Sarah, we're reading about this same idea again. And so I encourage you to just consider this, that Abraham and Lot represent two aspects of ourselves. Abraham is the higher nature and Lot is our lower nature. Abraham is our non-physical self and Lot is our physical self. Abraham is our divinity, Lot is our humanness. It's interesting because at the point that Abraham becomes Abraham, what you always read in the text is he's either with the Lord or next to the Lord. Now, why is that important? Because when we understand this power and this cycle of ascension that we take, and we have to understand a bit about the chakra system, we understand that the crown chakra is also known as the king's chamber. And so when you've reached that place of awareness, that place of awakening, that's where your mind and your consciousness is, with the Lord, with the king, in the crown. And so that's what was being depicted here. But what's so interesting is that both exist at the same time. There's an Abraham and there's a Lot within you that exists all the time. And where does this story get interesting? Because we also recognize, if we look at the human body, we recognize that our bowels or our sex organs are actually heat generating, right? Just like Sodom and Gomorrah. Because what did I say? I said Sodom means burning and Gomorrah means submersion. And so what we recognize then is that what we're looking at in this story are the root and sacral chakras. Interestingly enough, if we look at their colors, they are red and orange. Colors that we would relate to fire or burning. This is why Sodom and Gomorrah turned to sulfur and fire and were burned. This is why, again, Sodom means burning and Gomorrah means submersion. Now, it's important for us to understand, because when we hear this, we could easily take this part of the interpretation and say, yeah, see, that root chakra life, you got to get out of your root chakra. You can't live that way, right? And people immediately just take the chakra system and turn it into another way to pervert life and have us thinking about sin and judgment. But we understand that fire is absolutely necessary. The easiest way I love to explain it is that if you were going to cook something with fire, you have your wood, you light the fire, you have a fire, and then you would put whatever, a rack on, and then you have the meat or whatever you're cooking, vegetables, whatever it may be. And then, you have smoke and you have wonderful aroma and smell and everybody's happy, right? That's what the fire is like for us, right? The fire is generating, right? It creates heat, it creates light, it allows us to prepare things. The fire is necessary. But you can't live in the fire, right? If you tried to live in the fire, it would burn you, it would consume you. And so what we're seeing here, what's happening symbolically in the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, was this was Lot's time to get up out of the fire. It was Lot's time to move on up a little bit higher to the consciousness, his Abraham consciousness. And so this is what was happening. And again, this was simply just personified and developed into this wonderful, long, drawn-out story about Sodom and Gomorrah. But all it was really trying to teach us was something about ourselves, something about how we get to move on up a little higher. And so again, I said Sodom means burning and Gomorrah means submersion. And so then if we recognize that this is the root and the sacral chakra, we could say that this story is about going up yonder.
Bring it on in, Peachy.
If we understand what's really going on, that we're moving up from this place that's burning, this place that is this place of submersion. It's not some place in the sky, but it is a reality in your mind. This story is about ascension. And so when you hear Tremaine Hawkins sing the line, now I can take the pain, the heartaches they bring, the comfort in knowing I'll soon be gone, understand what that pain and heartache is. Understanding that you might have been living in hell. You might have been living in a Sodom in your own mind, but understand that there's a heaven within you. There's a place to go. You're going up yonder. Understand that you can begin the journey right here and right now. And so as you're beginning to make shifts in your life, as you're beginning to make changes in your life, as you're choosing to transform your life, I dare you to affirm, I'm going up yonder. Because you understand what's going on now. You understand that, yes, you had to live in and develop the root and the sacral chakra and moving on up to the solar plexus so that you can move on up a little bit higher, so that you can go on yonder into this place of consciousness, into this place where Abraham and Sarai are, in this place of miracles, in this place where things that ain't supposed to happen are happening, in this place where you ain't supposed to have kids, you have kids. When you are on that road of transformation and it starts to feel difficult, when you're on that road of transformation and you want to give up, I encourage you to say, I'm going up yonder. Because you understand where you are. You understand what you're fleeing. You understand where you're moving to. When you are tempted to make choices that don't serve you, or when you're tempted to fall back into old habits, just affirm within yourself, I'm going up yonder. And what does going up yonder mean? What does it look like when you arrive? This is what I love about the story. You turn the page. We are in chapter 19. We turn from 19 to 20 and we go to 21. There's something powerful that happens because I said there was a promise that was made to Abram and Sarai as their names were changed to Abraham and Sarah, that they would give birth to a son. And at this time in the story, Abraham is 100 and Sarah is 90 years old. And Sarah becomes pregnant. And they give birth to a son. His name is Isaac. What does Isaac mean? Laughter and happiness. Yeah. And so right here and now, know where you're going. When you say, I'm going up yonder, you know where you're going. You're going to a life of laughter and happiness. Not in the sweet by and by, but right here and right now. Yeah. Know that as you say and affirm and sing, I'm going up yonder to be with my Lord, understanding what the Lord is. Knowing that, yes, there may be some heartache and pain as you're choosing to release those old habits and release those old ways of being. Yes, that may happen, but you know where you're going. You know that the grace of God is there to allow you to run that race. I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder, and I will be there soon. So I invite you to hear this song differently. Go home, open up Spotify, whatever, and listen to the song. Because we have now reimagined the truth of this, knowing that the scriptures was inviting us to not live in this place of Sodom. Lot was captured there. Even I love that it says that it was captured. It wasn't where he belonged. That idea of covering, why Lot means covering, is because when we're in this world, that's what your human body is. It's a covering on your eternal soul. But in truth, you are Abraham and Sarai. You are the exalted mother and father of multitudes. Yes. There's a creation that is waiting for you to be created. There is a life that is waiting for you to be lived. Are you ready to go up yonder? Amen. With that I say amen. Amen. Ashe. Ashe. So it is. So it is.
Right? I wish I could have seen y'all's faces, but I could feel your energy. Y'all were like, dang. Right? I love the Reimagining the Bible series because it gives you an opportunity to rethink some things or to really know some things that you didn't know that you thought you knew. So we are so grateful that we get the opportunity to look at this text again. A Course in Miracles says, let me see this differently. It talks about life situations differently. But what we get to do is to see this text that has guided our lives, our policies, our government structures. It has guided everything. We get to see it differently. And we get to decide what it means. You get to decide, are you going to be the Abraham or the Sarah of your life? Are you going to walk around believing that you're unworthy? You get to decide. And it's a moment-by-moment choice. If you decide, today, I think I want to live a little higher. I think I want to go up yonder. You can make that choice. And if something steps you back, it's okay. God is not going to come down and see what you did wrong. Right? We are so grateful. Like it couldn't see from wherever it is. And we're not making fun of the text. We're just opening it up and relaxing it in a way that you can receive it so that you can know there has to be another meaning behind this. You can't take it literal. Right? Thank you, Pastor Gray.
Thank you. So in this time, it is time to prepare for giving. And first things first, I want to say anyone that is, if you're giving via credit card and you're actually filling that information out in your envelope, we need you to please add your email address. There's been a shift to the system that we're using, and we actually cannot process your giving without an email address. Of course, you can also give via the website or text to give. So we thank those who are giving via the website. You can give through your phone, or after service, you can use one of the iPads. If you're interested in texting to give, the number is 347-744-9500. I haven't said it in a while, but it's my favorite way to give because it's so quick, it's so easy, right? So I encourage you to try that out.
That also means that if you've given in the last month or so, 2 months or so, and you haven't seen it show up, that's why. It hasn't been able to process. Okay.
Beautiful. So, as we think about giving here at CSC, I say the same thing week in and week out because I think we cannot hear it enough. What giving is all about. Giving is not about shame. It's not about guilt. It's not even about a certain amount of money. What it is about is the consistency and living in the awareness of what giving and receiving is all about. At its base, giving and receiving is just like breathing in and breathing out. I have to exhale in order to inhale. I have to give so that I can receive. That's all it is. There's no shame, there's no guilt involved in that. And so if you are not exhaling in your life, I can already tell you what life looks like for you in terms of giving because I lived it. I remember how life began to shrink and it just felt like I didn't have enough money. I didn't know what was going on. And then I came to myself and I said, oh, I need to give. And at that time, I wasn't a part of a church community, so I began to just keep money on me. And anytime somebody asked for money, I just gave it without thinking about it. Because I knew that I needed to do that. I needed to breathe. That's why we give, y'all. And when we give from that place, we open up an amazing cycle of circulation because as we give, we must receive.
Yes.
And it becomes fun. You expect it. In every way, shape, or form, you expect it. And so when we live in that place and understand and give from that place, then we affirm this absolute truth. All the money that I use, returns to me multiplied, in a never-ending cycle, of increase and enjoyment. With that, I call our ushers forward. Let's take a very joyous offering.
Yes, Thank you. I give my treasure, doors are opening for me. As I give, I receive. This is all coming right back to me. I give my love comes rushing back to me. Thank you. I give my time, what times available to me. Thank you. I give my treasure, doors are opening for me. As I give, I receive. This is all coming right back to me. 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 Coming right back to me.
Let us extend our hands, and through our hands, this life beat, this life force that is you, Mother, Father, God. We are so grateful today to reimagine not only the Bible, but our giving. We bless the givers and the gifts, for we know that as it goes out, as we breathe out, we have to breathe in. And so as we release, we know that we are standing in anticipation for the ways in which you will show up this week. We bring our consciousness, we bring our whole selves, we allow ourselves to go up yonder. We allow ourselves to expect and realize and know that we are connected to the stream of well-being that is unending, uninterrupted, and will never dissolve. Thank you, Mother, Father, God, for this knowingness, and we release these words together by saying, Amen, Amen. Ashe. Ashe. So it is. So it is.
Let's affirm this together, y'all. I give my love. More love comes rushing. Right back to me. I give my time, more times available to me. I give my treasure, and doors are opening for me. As I give, I receive. It's all coming right back. Hey, back to me. Right on back to me. Just as easy as we breathe. Right back to me. Oh, right on back to me. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, it's coming right back. Right back. Coming right back. Right on back to me. Let us stand, everybody.
Stand.
So as a reminder, we have the God Talk. We'll start probably about 1:15.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Gives us time to set up.
Start at 1:15. Here, bring your questions. If you're things that you're showing up in your life, things that you want to learn how to apply these principles to or to see it differently, we are here to support you. There's no question that's off limits. It is always a transformative experience. I can't say that enough. It really is. Yes, 4Ts. Starts next week. At the moment, we do not have a lot of registrations. We need at least 10 people in the class in order to hold the class. So
If you've been on the fence, get off the fence and register.
and for those that have already registered, please just keep your eyes and ears open because we may have to cancel the class if we don't have additional registrations.
And one more thing that just came to my mind that brought a smile to my face. PG and I are going on vacation this coming week. 7+ years. We want to thank you all again for inspiring and providing a way for us to go away.
Thank you.
So if you don't hear from us, don't take it personally.
Yes.
Now, if something is still burning within you that you cannot let go of, something that you need to release and put it on the altar, something that is preventing you from rising a little higher in your connection and in your thinking, write it down and leave it on the altar. Leave your worries, your fear, your doubt, your insecurities, your unworthiness, your bank account, whatever it is. Leave it on the altar, and our prayer champion, Reverend Akila, will pray over it all week long. We do not beg, bargain, or beseech God. Y'all know what those words mean. Oh God, oh please, oh please. We don't do that here. We know who God is, we know where God is, and we know our connection to God. And we know that God is always responding to us based on our vibration. So, write it down and leave it there and rise on up a little higher. And when you do that, what do we say here at CSC when you let it go? All things
Are possible.
Now, all things are possible. Now every little thing is possible. 'Cause I know who I am. And I know whose I
Now all things are possible. Yes, everything is possible. I know I am, and I know whose I am. Magnificent I am. Now everything is possible. Because we know who we are, and we know whose we are. Cause I know who I am, and I know whose I am. Who are you? Magnificent you are, and brilliant you are. You're amazing, yeah. You're so amazing, yeah.
we love you.
Yes, have an
See you
amazing
next
week.
week, or see you at 1:15.